Tell me about your experiences in fashion.
I did not go to fashion school, but I am self-taught. So I graduated with political science and international relations. And although that background...
Imagine for a moment that everything you thought you knew about the conservative movement, about the sanctity of the American vote, and about the tragic death of one of the most influential young voices in political history was a carefully constructed lie, a grand architectural deception designed to place a wolf in the center of the sheepfold. We are talking about the meteoric and chilling rise of Erika Kirk, a woman who today stands at the helm of a 9-figure organization, Turning Point USA, embodying the image of the Tradwife and the grieving widow, yet whose past is a literal minefield of contradictions, erased identities, and shadowy connections that reach from the fashion runways of New York to the highest levels of international espionage. The story we've been told is that Erika was a modest, religious woman who waited for a man like Charlie Kirk, but the digital footprints she tried to scrub tell a story of a woman obsessed with fame, power, and the lens of the camera. A woman who once looked into an audition tape for The Amazing Race and gleefully agreed that sex sells, while flaunting the very cleavage she now tells young women to cover in the name of submission. But the hypocrisy of her wardrobe is the least of our concerns because when you dig into the timeline of Erika France, the woman she was before she became the queen of the Kirk Empire, you find a void filled with ghosts and suspicious coincidences that suggest she wasn't just a beauty queen, she was a plant. Why did she tell the world she never dated in New York for 5 years because the hookup culture was beneath her, only for us to find her on the reality show Summer House, drinking and dating on national television during that exact same window? Why did she and Charlie have conflicting stories about her time in China, with Charlie claiming she lived there for 6 months while she later downplayed it as a 2-week tourist trip? And why does an audition tape from her past mention her living in Chongqing, a massive industrial hub known for more than just tourism? This isn't just about a woman who lied about her boyfriends. It's about a woman who seems to have been curated for a specific role in a much larger, much darker game. Consider the private tape with J.T. Massey, the minor league baseball player who was allegedly her fiancé, a man who, despite her claims of a clean break, was spotted glued to her side and handy at the Peach Bowl, even after she was with Charlie. Who is this man, and why is he still circulating within the TPUSA network, appearing at rallies behind Donald Trump alongside Erika, as if a shadow family is waiting in the wings for the official husband to be removed from the board? When we look at J.T. Massey, we aren't just looking at a ghost from a past relationship. We are looking at a persistent thread that weaves through the very fabric of Erika's rise to power. The documentation of their engagement and the intimate, Amazing Race audition tape, where the modesty she now preaches is replaced by a calculated use of sex sells, raises a chilling question. Was the marriage to Charlie Kirk the actual union, or was it a tactical merger? For years, Erika France carefully curated a narrative of a single, career-focused woman who found true north only upon meeting Charlie. Yet, the presence of J.T. Massey at high-profile political events, often standing just a few feet away from the Kirk family, suggests a parallel life that was never truly discarded. Critics point to their presence together in the bleachers behind Donald Trump as a glaring anomaly. If Charlie was the public face of the movement, why was the ex-fiancé integrated into the inner sanctum of the security and social circle? This isn't typical post-breakup behavior. It looks like a strategic placement. And then there is the death, the sudden, jarring, and surreal death of Charlie Kirk on September 10, 2025. He was taken out by a rooftop sniper in the middle of a "Prove Me Wrong" debate at Utah Valley University, a death so cinematic and final that it sent shockwaves through the global political landscape. But look at the footage of Erika immediately following the news. Where is the soul-crushing grief you would expect from a woman who lost her partner and the father of her children? The public was presented with a battle cry instead of a eulogy. Within mere days of the assassination, Erika was not in seclusion. She was in the boardroom. She was unanimously voted in as CEO and chair of the board, stepping into the cockpit of a 9-figure influence machine with a speed that suggests the transition plan was already drafted and waiting for a signature. The optics of her grief have become a flashpoint for controversy. While the base was mourning, leaked audio allegedly from a staff meeting just 11 days after the killing revealed Erika giggling and boasting about the event of the century regarding Charlie's memorial. Instead of a widow's lament, we heard the cold, calculating tone of a corporate takeover. We saw a woman dousing herself in pyrotechnics, walking onto stages with a thumbs up and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, a woman who stepped into the CEO chair of a billion-dollar influence machine with zero qualifications other than a marriage certificate. As Andy Frisella and other bold voices have pointed out, you don't just happen to become the head of a 9-figure organization unless that was the plan from the beginning. Consider the curriculum vitae of Erika Kirk. Before the Tradwife pivot, she was a Miss Arizona USA winner, a reality TV contestant on Summer House, and an aspiring fashion mogul trying to break into the elite circles of Diane von Furstenberg, a world we now know was adjacent to the darkest corners of the Epstein and Maxwell web. This trainable and coachable woman, as she described herself in her youth, suddenly became the moral compass of the conservative youth movement. But which Erika is the real one? The one who lived in Chongqing, China, for months or weeks, depending on which version of the story you believe, or the one who now claims her only loyalty is to the American flag and the Bible. The inconsistencies in her background aren't just mistakes, they are holes in a cover story. Since her ascension to CEO, the shift in Turning Point USA has been palpable. The witch trials reported by former associates, where employees are grilled on their allegiance to Erika, suggest a purge of the Charlie Kirk loyalists in favor of a new, managed regime. Influencers like Candace Owens have openly questioned if Charlie was betrayed from within, suggesting that the leadership who eulogized him on stage may have been the very people who paved the way for his removal. If the organization was built to survive, as the board claims, we must ask, survive for whom? The hypothesis being discussed in the dark corners of the internet is as terrifying as it is plausible. Was Charlie Kirk merely a stepping stone, a vessel used to build a massive data and influence platform that could then be hijacked by interests far from America first? While Charlie was focused on the frontline battles of the culture war, was a shadow family and a shadow board positioning Erika to take the reins. The presence of her former lovers, not just Massey but others like Cabot Phillips, within the TPUSA speaker circuit creates an image of a closed-loop system, a private club that inherited a public movement. In this light, the assassination doesn't look like the act of a lone wolf furry, as the official narrative suggests, but rather a final edit in a script where Charlie had served his purpose. He built the stage, he gathered the audience, and then he was moved out of the frame so the coachable CEO could take the spotlight. The fireworks, the merchandise revenue, and the event of the century memorials weren't just about honoring a fallen leader. They were the rebranding of an empire. When a widow smiles through the smoke of a pyrotechnics display while her husband's blood is barely dry on the pavement of a Utah university, she isn't just moving on, she is moving up, and the world is beginning to wonder if she knew exactly when that ladder would be available. The rabbit hole goes even deeper when you look at the global stage Charlie was warning us about before he was silenced. We are talking about the Cartel del Sol, the Venezuelan narco regime that has allegedly compromised the very DNA of our voting systems. Whistleblowers like Gary Burnson have laid out a terrifying map of how Smartmatic and Dominion systems, birthed in the fires of Hugo Chavez's Venezuela and manufactured in the heart of communist China, have been used to flip the arc of history in 72 nations. These machines weren't just tools, they were weapons of unconventional warfare, designed to ensure that the correct leaders were installed without a single shot being fired. And right as Charlie was beginning to direct his massive audience's attention to this, to the fact that the FBI, the CIA, and the DOJ have allegedly been protecting this infrastructure, he is gone. And who is left to manage the narrative? Erika, a woman whose early career aspirations led her to the doorsteps of Diane von Furstenberg's fashion empire, a world inextricably linked to the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell orbits. When you see Erika pitching herself as trainable and coachable to an elite network that we now know was a hunting ground for intelligence assets and power brokers, you have to ask, who was training her, and what was she being coached for? The shift in Turning Point USA's messaging since Charlie's passing on September 10, 2025, is not a mere coincidence. It is a calculated, structural pivot that signals the end of an era and the beginning of a far more managed regime. The organization has noticeably softened its stance on key issues that once defined Charlie's firebrand approach, most notably its position on Israel, which has become a flashpoint for internal division. At the December 2025 AmericaFest, straw polls and stage debates revealed a movement fractured over foreign policy, signaling a move toward a more controlled version of conservatism that avoids the radical, unvarnished populism that threatens to rock the boat of the deep state. Erika Kirk, appointed CEO and chair, just 8 days after her husband was shot and killed at Utah Valley University, has become the perfect face for this transition. A beautiful, seemingly submissive widow who commands the reflexive loyalty of the base while potentially serving the interests of the very institutional forces Charlie was preparing to expose. We are looking at what many critics describe as a classic honeypot scenario, or a high-stakes, long-term infiltration where a leader's life is managed and his organization is quietly seeded with ex-boyfriends and consultants from the shadows. The presence of figures like J.T. Massey, the alleged ex-fiancé seen glued to her side at the Peach Bowl and standing in the inner circle at Trump rallies, suggests a persistent shadow network that was never truly discarded. This narrative posits that Charlie's eventual removal was timed perfectly to ensure that the massive infrastructure he built would ultimately serve a purpose diametrically opposed to his America First vision. At the time of his death, Charlie was becoming a megaphone for dangerous truths. The FBI raids on election offices, the indictments of Smartmatic executives for international bribery, and the whispers of Venezuelan software engineers in Serbia capable of altering swing state votes. This was all coming to a head, and by removing the megaphone and replacing it with a coachable influencer, the elites have effectively neutralized the greatest threat to their narrative control. Erika Kirk is increasingly portrayed not as a grieving wife, but as the guardian of deep-seated secrets, the woman who reportedly attempted to scrub her past to hide the reality that she was never the modest girl next door. Her history reveals a woman of the world, a former Miss Arizona with ties to the New York fashion elite and aspirations that led her to the doorsteps of networks adjacent to the Epstein and Maxwell orbits. Her conflicting stories about her time in China and her rapid rise to a CEO position for which she has no traditional qualifications only fuel the fire. Every smile she gives to the camera during high-production memorials, every Tradwife tip she posts on social media, serves as a layer of camouflage. This aesthetic of submissive domesticity is designed to keep the public from asking why her ex is still in the building, why her leaked Zoom audio from mere days after the assassination sounds more like a corporate victory lap than a widow's lament, and why she seems more empowered by Charlie's death than devastated by it. This represents the ultimate betrayal, not just of a husband, but of a populist movement and the nation itself. While the public is told to watch the fireworks, the fashion, and the all-American halftime spectacles, behind the scenes, the very cartels, foreign actors, and intelligence apparatus Charlie warned about are likely celebrating. They didn't just win a temporary political victory, they won the heart of the opposition's machinery. By installing a leader who knows exactly how to play her part, using the mantle of grief to shield the organization from scrutiny, they have turned a fortress of resistance into a managed asset, ensuring that the fire Charlie ignited is directed only where the new architects allow it to burn. Stay tuned, because as more documents surface from the vaults of the Venezuelan Central Bank and as more private tapes emerge from the archives of reality TV, the mask of Erika Kirk will continue to crack, revealing a narrative of power-seeking and deception that makes the Epstein scandal look like a prologue. The truth is out there, hidden in the inconsistencies of her travel logs and the eyes of the men she keeps in her inner circle. We are not just watching a widow, we are watching a takeover.